mostly Christian, mostly the people who live in the town. About 70% are Christians and 30% are Muslims, and we are surrounded by small Jewish towns. I grew up Greek Catholic, and in 2001, moved from this small town in Galilee to Times Square, New York, to study English or to learn English before I started my uh, program at the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago. So lived in New York for a few months, learned the language, moved to Chicago in August. So from March 17th until August 10th, that's the period I spent in New York, and then moved to Chicago. And the first day, Megan and I met, and we studied together. I graduated in 2005. Megan graduated in 2006. But Megan and I served in the Chicago area starting 2005. I had some time, developing a church that focused on immigrants from the Middle East, from all over the Middle East and some parts of Africa. And another part-time in Brookfield, Illinois, which is the suburbs of Chicago, among Anglo or blue-collar community. And then we served there for a few years. And then Megan and I were called together to serve a congregation in Fort Collins, Colorado. We spent about 6 years there. And then Megan felt the Holy Spirit asking her to go back to school. And during that time, I was nominated by our churchwide office in Chicago to become the director for the ELCA Fund for Leaders, this endowment fund that raises money and awards scholarships for people who are pursuing rostered ministry in the ELCA. So Megan and I served, I served in this capacity for a few years while Megan was still at school. And then in 2019, Megan and I again felt that the Holy Spirit is calling us to a new place, to a new ministry. And during that time, we were nominated to apply for this position as the country coordinators for YAGAM, Young Adults in Global Mission. And at the end of July of last year, Megan and our three kids, Ethan, Natalie, and Luke, and I moved back to the Holy Land, and we are living now in Jerusalem. Megan.
Yeah. And I was born and raised in the U.S. I was baptized at Zion Lutheran Church in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is another place that people don't think of probably first when they think of Lutherans, but Lutherans are also there. And I grew up in the church, very, very active. And then I went to Lutheran camps and to youth gatherings. I went to California Lutheran University and then Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago. It's a lot of Lutheran community, but I think growing up in the Western US where there are a lot more diversity of faith, I was always looking for that kind of belonging and communion with other Lutheran Christians. So Gabby and I did meet in seminary and got married. My first international experience was studying for a year in Munich while I was in seminary, which, similar to Gabby, I didn't really know much German before I went, and had a good friend tell me, don't worry, because no matter how much you know before you go, it won't be enough. And that's the same story I tell our Yaga volunteers when they arrive, all worried about whether they are prepared enough for this year, or any of the groups we've led on trips to the Holy Land, if they worry if they know enough or are prepared enough for what they'll experience. So I did go on leave from call in 2016 to start a PhD program at ILIF School of Theology in Denver, which I am still finishing up now, writing my dissertation or revising it actually. And then we have 3 kids. So this is a picture we took not long after we arrived last summer. And so I am holding Luke, who is our 5-year-old, our youngest. And then Ethan in the middle is 12. And then Natalie, who looks absolutely thrilled to be standing in the heat in the middle of a summer in Jerusalem, is 8.5. And so they took the adventure with us, moved to Jerusalem with us, and attend an international school here where they have classmates from all over the world and get to know our volunteers and our partners in the church and their family who lives here, which is one of the great blessings from being here. So many of you I know are familiar with Young Adults in Global Mission, or YAGM, which is our international service here for young adults 21 to 29 and has currently 10 country programs around the world. We are in the Jerusalem West Bank program. And so, as many of you also know, especially St. Paul, because of Southeast Michigan Synod's relationship with the ELCJHL, they are our partner church. Bishop Ibrahim Azar is currently the bishop. And then you can see us down there with the bishop and with Pastor Carrie Ballinger, who's the pastor to the English language congregation at Redeemer, when we are installing our YAGM volunteers last fall. As you may know, we do not currently have YAGM volunteers. 3 guesses why. The COVID-19 pandemic led the Global Mission Program as a whole to decide not to deploy volunteers this year. So we've been on a sabbatical year of figuring out what the YAGM program and what ministry in all of our different country programs looks like. But in a usual year, our volunteers work with the ELCJHL schools, which are the educational ministries that Opportunity Palestine also supports. They work mainly with English teachers or in English language writing or editing or administrative help. So there's 2 of our volunteers in the schools. Just like Gabby and Ethan did, they get to engage in the life of the community through their host families, through olive picking, among other things. And then as country coordinators, we not only handle all of the logistics, their housing, their stipends, their medical stuff, but we also set them up with their placements, and we do spiritual formation and small group stuff with them. We go on retreats several times a year. We had monthly gatherings. We walk with them. We accompany them as they're learning what accompaniment looks like in this context. Now, Gabby maybe can talk a little about, there you see what may be a very familiar but very unfamiliar site. That is the old city of Jerusalem locked down, shut down. Mm-hmm. So Gabby can talk a little about what COVID has been like here.
Yeah, I mean, many of you, if I'm not mistaken, have been to the old city. And when you came, there were thousands of tourists and people. You couldn't even walk the streets of the old city. And probably when you came, or if you haven't done that yet, I will give you a picture. So a lot of tourists come through the old city of Jerusalem to get to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the holiest places for Christians, where we believe Jesus was crucified and was buried and was raised. So this area is very important, and there are lots and lots of shops that are owned by a lot of Palestinian people, and some of those Palestinian people are Christian families who survive basically, or provide for their families because of the tourists who come through and they buy souvenirs. But since COVID hit this area last March, we have been under a lockdown twice already. The airport was shut down. There are 0 tourists, and even the locals were not allowed to travel long or far away. Sometimes we were allowed just to go about 100 feet from where we live. So COVID had hit the area strongly economically, and a lot of people who were providing for their families because of tourism have felt the pressure and felt the tension, and some of them have closed their shops, and some of them they have left even, and try to go to a different area or different location to start a new life or new business. So as you can see, this is just a simple picture or pictures from last Easter, and people have been struggling since then. We are hoping that tourism will start again, hopefully next spring if possible, and that things will come back the way they used to be or even better.
Yeah, we really just see some more images here of the heart of the old city. It is so strange. You used to jostling and being jostled by people as you walk, and you know the peace is actually really strange. As I've talked to people who live and work there, who maybe never thought they'd say they miss the crowds, but who do because of everything it represents to see everything locked up. And for the ELCJHL, this is also true. I learned that the ELCJHL is able to pay the salaries of its teachers in the schools in part because of the revenue from the Lutheran guest houses, which now have been standing empty because no pilgrims are able to come in. And yet, you know, in the times when we have eased up on lockdown, you can see there is still some life and some movement around the city, though the masks are prevalent here, as they are many places. This is Pastor Carey and Pastor Fersen Zumot, pastor to the Arabic speaking congregation at Redeemer, who were able to host Easter sunrise service outside with masks on the Mount of Olives, which was a bittersweet memory because it was wonderful to be able to do that for Easter. And just now, the churches are trying to figure out what Christmas services will look like and how different that will be from what is usually going on. And yet, you know, we know and we are learning continually from our Palestinian Lutheran companions here that, you know, living life under hardship, under lockdown, under containment is not a new story for Palestinians. And they have been teaching us, or me, I should say, the fortitude and what it means like to look for and to sustain hope, even when the timeline is completely unknown, when the future is uncertain. So we hold that, we hold on to that. I think it's a witness that our Palestinian siblings can share with the world, to know what it means to wait. Here as we're about to enter Advent, to wait for good news and for a new start that is still not arrived. So we'll pause here. So that was a little bit what kind of we wanted to bring and share tidings from Jerusalem and the West Bank, but we'd love to chat with you all and to hear what you'd like to share or what you'd like to ask.
I just want to say thank you to you guys for hopping on today and for being with us. As you know, we're focusing on global mission this month and have chosen to really hone in on Opportunity Palestine and the work that you all are doing as country coordinators. And so just hear our gratitude and appreciation for your leadership and for your partnership and for being able to do this with us. We just really value this time. And so, yeah, I would open it up to anyone that has questions or thoughts or, yeah.
I've got one. In the midst of the great challenges that you alluded to that Palestinians face daily, we hear of their radical hospitality. And our association with Opportunity Palestine has helped us to better understand the occupation and its impact on the churches of the ELCJHL. And concerning that radical hospitality, have your young adults witnessed this hospitality, and how has it been a witness to your life and theirs?
Thank you so much for that question. And absolutely, we do. And we know that now in the months since our current volunteers had to go home early, we have gotten to see them preaching and sharing in different contexts. And that is the thing that they always talk about. It is the radical hospitality they witness. People who help them when they don't even ask for help. People who, you know, and Gabby has a good story about that when you took the Yagam volunteers out in the car that time and you were looking for, I forget where you were going, but do you remember that?
Yeah, I was talking and I was taking our Yagam to the church in Jerusalem, and we hit traffic. So I tried to take a shortcut, but of course I got lost. Then I stopped just to ask for direction, and two guys were cleaning their car, and I said, "Hey, hi, we got lost. How do I go back to the main street to get to church?" So they explained how I should do that, but then they insisted that we get out. We have water, we have fruit before we leave, because we just stopped and we asked for direction. So it shows you that this area, even though you hear much or a lot about conflict and about people not liking other people and war and etc., but when it comes to hospitality, it is in the identity of the Palestinian people. This is who we are. This is what we are proud of. I know actually from our Yagam about other stories when they got lost and people on the street just stopped their cars and said, "Well, don't worry, we'll show you the way. Don't be scared." And they were able to get to a point for these young adults to trust the locals to a point where if somebody stops and says, "I'm going to help you," that they know they mean it. They're not trying to harm them or trying to have other plans, but they are very sincere about what they are trying to do at that point or that moment. And this is the story of the Palestinians. They are proud of who they are, proud of their culture, and hospitality is what define them to some degree.
Yeah, and it's not just a hospitality of food or material things, though it is. I mean, you won't go to any meeting or go to see anyone without having things to eat and coffee or tea, and but it's also a generosity of time.
Yeah.
And a generosity of time. Every time I drive somewhere in the West Bank and have to park the car, and cars park everywhere, all different ways, and it's always a matter of trying to kind of squeeze your car in. And I always feel like a VIP because like 2 or 3 people come out and they're like, this way, turn, more, and they just they like drop everything they're doing to help you get into a parking space. Or like Gabby's, when I think about the olive planting, our Yagam Olivia tells this story about learning that, that whenever you plant an olive tree, you're not planting it for yourself. There's no way, because it doesn't bear fruit until and 5-6 years later, it doesn't become a mature tree fully producing, probably until the time after yours. So it's an abundance that enables a generosity toward the future that I think is really powerful.
Yeah, but also our Yagam, they live with host families, and that's part of the program. And the reason for it is because when they are living with Palestinian people, they get to know them and they get to know who they are, and they get to know not just the host family, but their relatives and their friends, and their community grows quickly. So they get to know really what it means to be hosted, but also what it means for the Yagam to host. So maybe at the beginning they were hosted by many Palestinians, but they got to a point where they also hosted other people in their apartments or outside in the community, and that's really goes a long way.
Mhm.
I've heard there's been an uptick when it comes to the occupation, when it comes to the land, eminent domains, and taking land and claiming it as their own during the election time. Has there been an uptick on that kind of when I don't have the right language for it, but when they come in, they have their celebrations on land that's not theirs, but claim it as theirs.
Settlement.
Yes. Was there an uptick on that lately?
Always.
Mm.
I mean, this is not anything new. This has been going on for a long, long time. And unfortunately, it's not slowing down. And I'm not talking about Trump or Biden, but I'm talking about the U.S. government. The last few years did not help the Palestinian people much because even though the issue of settlements has been around for a long time, what the U.S. government did is made it more legal, or they gave them the green light to say, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter what has been decided in the past, or doesn't matter what the United Nations has talked about and decided on in 19, all that we're going to put to the side. Now we are going to say, well, you want this piece of land, take it. You want this piece of land, take it, regardless of what the Palestinian people are going through here, regardless of their rights, regardless of their history. So the issue has been more complicated by giving the green light, not less complicated. And the Palestinian people are worried and frustrated, and because many people are continuing to lose their land, their homes, also demolishing homes has been an issue here. So it's not just grabbing lands, but also the existing homes that Palestinian people are living in have been up for grab.
Yeah, and as it's the olive harvest season, there are always reports, and I just saw one recently. The in general, the types of settlers that tend to go to the furthest out settlements are kind of, have deep ideological, religious beliefs about their right to be on this land that is within the Palestinian territories. And so Israeli settlers will come and cut down these olive trees that are hundreds of years old, burn the olive fields, and confront and sometimes physically attack Palestinians who are out harvesting olives on their own land. And while the military in the area are there, you would hope to keep the peace, but I don't know that Palestinians have a lot of confidence in being aided or being helped there. And so that always happens during the harvest season too. And it's really, really sad. Yeah.
Gabby, talk more about your family and the history in Alaboon. Does that literally mean the town was named after your family?
He's the mayor.
He's the mayor. No, actually, we are named after the town. So
Okay.
the name Elabuni, it's the spelling of the name, either you spell with AE or AI, Labouni, and the I at the end means from. So Elabuni means from Elabun. And Elabuni means there is a water spring in Elabun. Hopefully when you guys come to visit, we'll take you there. And that water spring was really the life of the town. So they are, the name of the town comes from the water spring. Ain Laboon means a spring that is wealthy, literally has a wealth of water. But it's interesting. The story that I was told is that we had a different name. We've always been in that town, and we go back. I think the last I remember, I was told that we were able to track our family back to the 16th centuries, 17th century. But my family had or did a lot of work with like welding. The family had many welders, and then when they go from town to town to do the work, they would call them, oh, these are the Elabunis, meaning the people from Elabun, and that it started by a nickname, and then it became a name of the people. So yeah.
And Elabun is what, about 4,000 people?
About 5,000 people
Yeah.
now. As I mentioned earlier, the majority of the people in town are Christians, and not a lot of towns. The majority are Christians in Galilee anymore. But it's a beautiful town. It's you can, it's surrounded by olive trees. You can see at some from if you go on top of the hill, you can see the Sea of Galilee from a distance. You can also see the like parts of the ocean if you go on the on the other side of town. So it's a beautiful area. And Elabun went through a lot. Elabun in 1948, when the state of Israel was established, their people became refugees in Lebanon, and lots of people from town were killed. They were shot by the military. And my dad at that time was 7 or 8 years old only. And he walked from Galilee with his mom and his dad and the other kids and other people from Galilee through the mountains and the Golan Heights, and they became refugees in Lebanon. So Labun has a rich story. You can maybe read about it if you Google Elabun or you Google Elabun massacre. You can read more about it and learn more about it. It's a very touchy story, actually. It's a miracle. Yeah, hope in the midst of cry.
Can you talk a little bit about your sabbatical year and re-looking at the young adults and global mission program and what's going on with that and how that's going?
Yeah, the sabbatical year, on the one hand, was not what anyone planned or hoped for, but when the ELCA made the decision, and in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense because, that all the different country programs are in such different places. Like ours are not, like Israel's not allowing in people who aren't nationals or residents for the most part. Many other countries, this is also true. But it was also the first time in the 20 some years of the YAGM program, and I think 12 or 13 years that YAGM have been coming to the Jerusalem West Bank program. And there's never really been a pause, a time to evaluate, because you're always having volunteers, getting ready for new volunteers. And it's very similar in congregations. When you do something year after year after year, it's also hard to find the space and time to step back and to say, how is this working actually? And so that's the hope, is that in talking to our partners, certainly the bishop and the other pastors, Dr. Charlie Haddad, who directs the educational ministry, and Salami Bishara, who works with him, the principals from the schools and the environmental education center, all of the people, the host families who've been part of the YAGM program, for us to look at things like, do the placements we have for service still make sense? Do we have room to grow for more placements? Is the host family situation working out well? There may be little tweaks or bigger ones or things that we just haven't tried before. So that's what we are hoping to engage in. Meanwhile, the applications for next year are open. They open November 1st, and we are moving forward with every hope and expectation that the YAGM program will go full steam ahead starting in August 2021. And we had, for the group of folks who had applied for YAGM for this year, we're just at the interview and placement stage. The invitation was offered that if they were still available and interested for this coming year, we would move their applications over automatically. And 35 young adults took us up on that offer. So before the applications even opened, there was this strong group of 35 young adults who said, please put my name forward again this year. So I think we're especially not having the YAGM this year, we're excited to start looking forward to that and to work with our partners here so that we can help the program to grow.
Cool, thanks.
Could you guys talk a little bit about the relationship between ELCA and ELCJHL and what that looks like, that relationship, how the churches work together? Are you guys the bridge between, what is that communication like?
Yes, the ELCA and the ELCJHL has a long history that is based on faith, respect, and also they follow the model of accompaniment. It's very important for us as a church that we, and I'm talking specifically as an ELCA pastor myself, that we believe and understand that we are not called to go and fix things for the people, but to walk with the people and to listen to the people and to understand what our partners are going through and what are their struggles, what are their joys, and why they are doing things the way they are doing things. The church here in the ELCJHL is an important presence in this part of the world, very important. And like any other church, they have a lot of struggles, but also they have a lot of blessings as well. And the ELCJHL understands that they are a voice for peace and justice for all, and also the center for people here in the Holy Land and also in Jordan to come together to talk about issues, political issues, but also issues of religion. And they have a voice, the voice of a balance. And when we talk about the relationship between the ELCA and the ELCJHL, the ELCA also believes in the importance of the role that the ELCJHL is playing. So when we talk about accompaniment means a lot, as I mentioned, but also for us as an ELCA, we recognize that this church, the ELCA and the ELCJHL, yes, is based on faith and based on Jesus Christ, but in all that, it has also culture that matters to this people or to this church, because the church is the people that the church is serving, and the people have cultures and they have history that when they do the ministry, all these things come together to make their faith story alive. And the ELCA understand that and walks with them on that journey.
Mhm.
I hope that helped with not and didn't make things more complicated for you.
We're the people who do that. And then also our colleague, Pastor Carey, who we mentioned, as the pastor to the English language congregation, also works as kind of one assistant of many to the bishop on like putting out things in English to international partners. Saeed Ilabuni, yes, relation, is currently the Global Missions Area Desk Director for the Middle East. And Saeed it has a long history. He also was born and raised in Nazareth and came to the US to go to Concordia College in Moorhead and became a pastor in the ELCA for many years. And so he also helps to tend to those relationships. And we have had in the past communications personnel too that the ELCA has sent to help in communications work. We don't currently have one, but so that are some of the concrete ways in which we relate.
And when we talk about the ELCA, I wanted to be clear. I'm not talking about churchwide in Chicago. I'm talking about you and me and Megan and the church as a whole. You play an important role of being the church who believes in the model of accompaniment. So yes, we met many of you for the first time, but I hope that by us being here, we are representing you and representing the church in the US and representing the ELCA. But the church, not church-wide, just in Chicago, but all of us who are walking with the ELCJHL and the people of the Holy Land.
I have a question about typically when your year with a YAGM starts, does that go from a January to January, or how does that work? And when do you think it might, hopefully, all things working together for good, it might start up again?
That's a great question. The YAGM program year typically starts in August. So our YAGM volunteers arrive in Chicago in mid-August for a 10-day or 2-week orientation there to the whole program. They all come together. It's about 75. And then they all deploy the same time to their various country programs. So we welcome them here around the 20th of August. And then we do an in-country orientation for a couple of weeks. And then they start in their placements at the beginning of September. And then the program year goes until end of June, beginning of July, the following summer. And then there's, which in our case, really flows very well with our educational ministries, because that's sort of their program year as well. And summertime is a time when people tend to vacation and gets really hot and people don't want to do, school is out and it's hot and people are traveling. And so it's a good time then for our YAGM volunteers to head back to the US. I mean, oftentimes too, if they've graduated from college recently, they may graduate in May or June and then join us in August. And so that's been the natural kind of rhythm of the program year. And so the hope is that will be the plan for this next year. Our applications are open now. In March would be the event where those whose applications are chosen for what they call DIP, Discernment, Interview, and Placement, will come together for a virtual event in March. All of the YAGM volunteers are, when they're accepted to interview and discern, they identify 2 country programs, the 2 of the 10 that they could be a good fit for. So they interview with both, and they learn more about them and about the program as a whole. And then at the end of that event, they're given an invitation. You are invited to come to the Jerusalem West Bank program. And then they give their final yes or no to that. And then they join us in August. So we're hoping that can all go according to schedule. And if there are any, and on our end, one of the first things we do then, starting after we know who our cohort will be, or work on getting visas for them so that they're allowed to come and be here for the year. And so doing preparations, things like that.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Gabby, talk a little bit about just the importance of the education ministry to the ELCJHL and the history of that. And I've always been amazed at how important that seems to be within their church there. And just talk about that from a cultural standpoint and just a practical standpoint with the current ELCJHL.
Yeah, this is a very good question, Dave. And I will go back to the ELCJHL because the ELCJHL believes, and the bishop believes in the importance of education. And that the education system through the ELCJHL is very important and also thriving. There are 3 main schools that belongs to the ELCJHL. That's School of Hope in Ramallah, the school in Beit Sahur, and also the school in Bethlehem. And the 3 schools are doing an amazing job in educating the people and the kids on a very high level. And when I say kids or students, I don't just think about Lutheran students or Christian students, but I mean students from all backgrounds. Actually, the majority of the people or the students at the school in Bethlehem and the school in Ramallah are Muslims. And about 60% of the students in Beit Sahur are Christians and 40% are Muslims. So as you can see, the schools really welcomes all students from all backgrounds, but they hold them to a very high standards. And today, if you talk about education in the Palestinian territory, it matters because what the ELCJHL schools are doing, they are really trying to be creative in educating the people or the students in a way that gives them options, and options not to leave the country, but options to stay and help their country to thrive and to do things to benefit their own people. I mean, and that's why the ELCA is also through Opportunity Palestine is trying to emphasize the schools in the ELCJHL. Education matters. I mean, you know this, I know this. Education matters. And when you are under occupation, and when you are surrounded by walls, and when you have all this pressure, education becomes more important than a lot of things, because through education you can see hope. A new education, through education you can see new possibilities. Through education you can resist. So the ELCJHL schools are doing all the above, all the things that I mentioned, and I thank you. I know that many of you work with Opportunity Palestine to support the ELCJHL schools. But this is an opportunity for me to say that because of COVID, our ELCJHL schools are struggling. And when I say struggling, I mean financially. They are not, because Megan mentioned this earlier, the school pay their staff through the guest houses that the ELCJHL has and through donations. So when COVID hit this area, no tourists, the guest houses are locked or closed, no income. So the schools are struggling. And that means, when it comes to paying the teachers is a struggle. But also it's a struggle because the parents of the students are not able to pay the small tuition fee that they pay to the school.
Mhm,
So that's by itself, it's becoming
mhm.
a huge struggle and a huge cloud upon the principals, upon the bishop, and trying to figure out how to do this in a way that does not compromise the quality of the education
Mhm.
in the West Bank.
Mhm.
Have any of the schools had to close? I thought at one time that we had 5 or 6 schools in the Jordan and the Holy Land. Have any of them had to close?
No.
And we should say that in addition to the K through 12 schools Gabby mentioned, you may also be thinking of there's the Talita Kumi school in Beit Jala, which is not primarily ELCJHL directed or funded, but is through a strong partnership with Germany, but is certainly one of the active schools in the area. And also the college, the University College of Arts and Culture, Dal Kalime, which is in Bethlehem and is still thriving too. Yeah. So yes, so they are all still open, as well as the Environmental Education Center in Beit Jala, which is one of my favorite places because of the ways that they, the research and the ways that the educational things they do to help teach Palestinians about the importance of creation care for the land that they're living on. And so the good news is the need is still there. These ministries, other than these financial challenges, are really thriving. They last year, the Taujihi, which are the leaving exams set by Jordan, right? That are similar to like the Abitur in Germany or the GCSE in England. The Palestinian Authority sets these leaving exams from high school, and the students from the Lutheran schools did very, very well.
The highest.
Yeah,
the
and
highest.
exactly. They were telling us there was a student, I think in Ramallah, who's sight impaired, and they figured out a way to help her do the exams through Braille, I think, which is not like a specialty of the school. They just figured out how to do it. And so that's the good news, is that the educational ministry is still happening.
And they are proud of the educational ministry. We are proud of the educational ministry. The schools are needed, and it's a pride of the church here in Palestine.
How many students are there, do you think, in the system?
Yeah, it's so on average, about I would say between 350 to 400 students. But I asked the question, pardon me, per
school.
Yeah, per school. Thank you. But there is, at least my understanding, there's a waiting list for students to join the schools. I know that there's a waiting list at the school in Ramallah. There is a waiting list for students to join the school in Bethlehem. And that shows you that the school is well respected in the community. And that's a huge thing.
Well, we're proud of you, and we're proud of our association with you and to support you guys as our missionary. We are proud of the work that you do with your Yagams, as David is a product of the ministry that your program is a part of. I wanted just to acknowledge that we're working on about our hour here, and just to say that if there's any last questions, this is your time. But we're very proud to be a part of your ministry and to support you in what you're doing and to stay connected, and that the power of technology can bring us together no matter what, and we can do that through this Zoom conversation. So Megan and Gabby, we're so grateful to be connected with you, and so thankful for the ministry you have done and that God is doing with you now. And we look forward to getting to better know you as your time there continues and our time here is. And there's so much more we can do together, and let this month and this time be a glimpse of the feast of our relationship as we support you and the schools there. Any last kind of moments and questions from our group?
Just as go ahead. Just as a personal note, COVID has taken its toll on isolation and communication. Has it taken its toll on obtaining life's necessities for people? Are little neighborhood markets still open? Can people get the things they need to live? Is that an extra burden because of transportation and locations and exclusions?
It's a good question. It depends on where you are, but for the most part, at least if you are on the Israeli side, if you're living in Jerusalem, even during the lockdown, you were allowed to go to see your doctor, get groceries, or go to the pharmacy. The same thing in the West Bank. I think they had a lockdown for a while, but things are easing down a little bit. But even during that time, they were allowing people to go to the grocery store, see their doctor, and also go to the pharmacy to get medicine. But the church also has been playing an important role, if I may, to address that issue, that specific issue that you mentioned. I know that the pastors know some specific people in the community, and when I say in the community, not just in the congregation, that were not, they lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their jobs, but the church took an oath to stand with the people and to provide for them as much as possible during this difficult time. And all the ELCA congregation and the ELCJHL congregation have been doing that, including the congregation in Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah. Pastor Justin, if I may just say 2 words. I wanted to thank you all very, very much for what you do. We are the church together. We're not just living here doing ministry, and you are there in Michigan doing ministry. We are doing ministry together in God's name. And for that, I give God thanks. I give God thanks for you, for each and every one of you. We can't do this ministry without you, without your prayers, without your support, without your generosity. And it's a testimony to your ministry that you gave us a chance to introduce ourselves and tell you about this work that we are doing here. And I want to thank you very much for that. By the way, I am a product, I'm the product of Michigan people. I did my internship in Michigan, in Farmington Hills, Michigan, at Antioch Lutheran Church. So I spent a year with the people of Michigan that I loved dearly.
Not the weather so much.
Not the weather. But somebody asked, Bonnie, I think, asked about hospitality. You, the people of Michigan, you know hospitality. And I thank you for that. I will never forget the year that I spent in Michigan, Farmington Hills, not knowing anyone, a new person from the Middle East coming to this new part of the world. But the people of Michigan, not just the congregation, really embraced who I am and really took me under their arm, and they showed me the way, and they taught me a lot. And for that, I am forever grateful. So thank you all for who you are.
And that was with Don Chris, who happens to be our bishop.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you,
I
Gabby.
just wanted to share a couple ways that we can stay connected with you guys, with everyone that's on the call. We are currently in the month of November. We are working through a giving calendar so that we can raise as much money as possible to support Opportunity Palestine and the educational needs like you were just referring to. So we're doing that all through November, and I'm hopeful about what we can do to bring support in that way. Pastor Megan will be joining us at Naomi's this week, and Bonnie leads our Naomi's group, so we look forward to more time with her. I'll also be emailing out links to the videos that Pastor Megan did through our the Gather devotion, so that you all can see those if you haven't yet. And then we are putting together a care package for your family, Megan and Gabby and Ethan and Natalie and Luke,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So just encouraging you all to just drop off cards to the church that you would like to include in that care package. And then you guys have a blog that you post to, or a way that we can, a link?
Yeah, good question. We don't currently have a blog. We do have a newsletter we send out every few months. And anyone who wants to be included on that can send us an email. And I know that Audrey and Pastor Justin, you have our emails, but we encourage people to contact us that way.
Okay.
Also feel free to friend us on social media. We're happy to do that too. And we'll sometimes post pictures and things about what we're up to here. We really, welcome that. And thank you. All of those are such thoughtful and generous things, not only for the ministries here, but for our family too. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And hopefully when we go back to the US, we will plan on stopping by to see all of you in person, and maybe lead a Bible study or preach or something.
Yep.
Yeah,
And likewise, as soon as it's safe, ahlan wa sahlan, come on over.
That's the one thing I forgot to mention is you all preached for our online worship this week. So if you haven't had a chance to see that, be sure to take a look. So thank you so much for your time, and tell your kids hello and your family hello. Thanks for letting us steal you away for a little while so we could visit. And just thanks.
Well, thank you
I'm
all.
going to butt in before we leave with some ruthless promotion here, just because we have so many people gathered. The Advent workshop stuff is online. You can order. I have 300 cookies in my living room. And even if you don't want to do the cookies yourself, think about getting some cookie kits and giving them away. This would be a chance just for us to show hospitality to our neighbors and other people. So check that and come get some cookies.
Sign up, sign up, sign up.
Justin, would
Thanks,
you?
and sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you, Peg. Would you close us with a prayer for Megan and Gabby and their work, and just close us with prayer?
I would appreciate it. At where you are, extend a hand of blessing to Gabby and Megan and their family. Dear God, I give thanks for global ministry, a ministry that is not just next door, but is around the world, and how we as a church support Gabby and Megan in their place, in their sabbatical, in their current exercises of ministry where they are. May the warmth of this spirit that holds us together be a warmth that goes through our hands and into the hearts of Megan and Gabby, and sustain them in this tough time, in this transitional time, and their support of and our support to them continues as they do incredible ministry there, here, near, and far. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.